Phoenix real estate market has done really well over the last several years. In fact, it is the #1 reason why the cost of living has increased so much over the past several years, making Phoenix actually a little bit on the upside of the average cost of living for a US city across America. Whereas just several years ago, it used to be below as kind of like a hidden gem, if you will. Everyone discovered it, and now, since COVID especially, the housing prices have skyrocketed. So because those prices have skyrocketed, when is the housing crash going to happen? It's gotta happen in 2024, right? But before we get to that, I am a realtor with Real Broker. Cook & Associates Real Estate Advisors is a team that sells over $100 million each and every year, helping many, many clients and families get into the house they always wanted to live in. So if you wouldn't mind calling us or emailing us at 480-660-5974 with any questions, we would love to be a real estate agent of choice. And when you get a chance, check us out here on Google, and we have over 430 5-star reviews that you can take a look at that other people are saying cool stuff about us as well. So don't take our word for it. Check out the reviews and see what they have to say themselves. So now that we got that out of the way, we still have that cliffhanger question out. Is 2024 the year the housing market, especially in Phoenix, is going to crash and blow up? That's what everyone wants to have happen. I feel like people want that to happen because it would make affordability for many more people, for the ones who didn't get in 2020 or before. Hindsight's always 2020, that is for sure. Not the year, but the 2020 vision. And the situation is too bad we didn't know what was going to happen in 2020 and into the near future, because the people who bought just before that or just after that did really well for themselves, even with 2023 not being a very good year. So speaking of 2023, before we know where 2024 is going to go, we should probably take a step back and look at what was the year of 2023 for the housing market, especially in the Phoenix area. And we're going to show you some graphs and information that's going to make you think that 2023 wasn't the best year. And in fact, it wasn't the best year compared to 21, 22, and potentially 24. But the crazy part, we still had positive appreciation in the Phoenix housing market year to date at the end of 2023. So the naysayers say, Kelly, well, that's one more reason why in 2024 the housing market is sure to crash, right? Oh, stop it, you naysayers. You're so silly. Just look at the data, and that will tell you everything you need to know. Data over drama is how we operate here on the channel of Everything Phoenix, because even though we feel like something is ripe to happen, that doesn't mean it's going to automatically happen. The data will point us in the right direction as to what possibly is on the horizon for 2024. So let's dive in. So let's start with the median home sales price. You can see this graph right here that the median home sale price actually peaked in 2022 at $480,000 here in the Phoenix area. Since then, it has gone down overall, and you can see in 23 there was a dip, and now it is back up to about $455,000. And keep in mind that $455,000 price point for the median average is actually floating around that number for quite some time, even with the interest rates being around 7% or higher this entire time. So is the marketplace getting used to that? Okay, so now I'm going to pull up another chart that has to do with the annual change in monthly median sales price in the Phoenix area. So you can clearly see that 2023 was not a banner year when it comes to the monthly median sales price for the Phoenix area. In fact, most of 2023, the median sales price was declining until it actually turned the corner around the summer of 2023 and started to climb back up once again. So right now at 8.3%, you can see we are pretty close to being where we were in Q3 of 2022. So we're back to where we were. So if you're looking at this metric and you were going on this one alone, you would say the bottom of the market was in 2023, the summer specifically of 2023. We should have jumped in and bought right then. Now, as you see, I love graphs, and I'm going to show you one more that has to do with the median sales price, because that really is the truest indicator in terms of where pricing is for what you can afford. So if you look at the graph right here, you can see that the areas that are most affordable are mainly in Phoenix proper. Then you have this little square that you can see that's pinkish around the Glendale area. And then just to the northwest of that, you have the Surprise area that is a little more affordable. That's also the El Mirage suburb as well. Now, as you can imagine, these areas are not the nicest areas in the Phoenix area, and therefore they're the most affordable. And then you go over to the East Valley, Mesa, Gilbert, Chandler, and you can see that they are a little more expensive than the Phoenix area, but also more affordable than, say, the Northeast Valley. So up in the Northeast Valley, you see Paradise Valley, you see Scottsdale, Fountain Hills. That is the most expensive real estate overall in the entire Phoenix area. And so this gives you an idea of where the most affordable areas lie. Now, if you want to be really affordable, you can see all the new construction happening here in the pink areas down by Florence and Coolidge, and even on the outskirts of Santan Valley in the Southeast Valley. These areas are exploding with new home construction to try to have the supply increase to hopefully match at some point the demand, which still is a huge imbalance between that supply and demand in the housing market in Phoenix overall. And that is the precipice for the main reason why the housing market is having an affordability issue throughout the Phoenix area. This problem ideally needs to get solved. Now we're going to pivot to interest rates here in a second. From an affordability pricing standpoint, you can see the graph here shows you the different parts of the United States where affordability is the best. And so the highest score equals the most affordable. You can see across America that the Midwest section of the country is the most affordable place to live, followed by the Northeast, then the South, and then last but not least, where Arizona is located, the West. But this is just a general statement. So there are places, as you saw by that median price point map within the Phoenix area alone, that are very affordable. It just may not be in the specific area you want to be. It may be with a longer drive to work than you would like to have, or things of that nature. So it just depends on what your lifestyle is and what you're looking for, because I can tell you one thing, guys, if it's for an amazing outdoor lifestyle with great weather and just a ton to do with a very high upside for future potential and appreciation for the asset you own, Phoenix is going to be very hard to beat for a marketplace across the US. Now let's pivot over to another economic factor, which is wage growth. How is that doing in America overall? Now, one thing a lot of fortune tellers don't actually take consideration is the wage growth. And we've had positive wage growth through America here recently. In fact, if you look at this graph right here, you can see that across America, there's a 5.72% wage growth in January 24 alone. And if you look in December, you're looking at over a 7% wage growth. So across the last year in 2023, although the transaction count was down significantly from 2022 for the housing market, wage growth increased dramatically. So that is a very good thing. Now, if you look at the next chart here, the wage growth tracker, you can see some overlays. And what I want you to take note of is the red graph. The red graph actually is the wage growth tracker specifically for hourly employees across America. And you can see that they had the largest increase of wages across all segments. So it's not rocket science, but minimum wage growth across America in most states increased dramatically as indicated by this chart. And so you do have that, which is good on a percentage basis. However, a lot of those minimum wage jobs just don't pay that much. That's why they're called minimum wage, and therefore they're on the bottom scale of the affordability metric. So even with the increase they had over the past year or so, it still doesn't keep up with the increase of costs due primarily to inflation. And what is inflation? Inflation is too much money chasing after too little goods. So until all this money that's been circulated into our economy actually gets through all the different channels and out to the people, the businesses, etc., and circulates in through the economy and the system, we will still have this inflation that hopefully is getting more and more under control and will be so in 2024. Now let's pivot to interest rates, because even if prices stay up and the affordability is still high, you have interest rates that can offset a lot of that, because people at the end of the day don't buy a price of a home, they buy the monthly payment. That's right. And so if rates can come down and people can have a much more affordable monthly payment to pay based upon their income that comes in on a monthly basis, we will have a housing market that continues to increase, especially on the number of transactions, because that is what is really needed. From 2022 through 2023, the amount of transactions nationally went down about 20%. That is a lot, guys. Think about that. 20% of any industry going down is a lot, especially all the other sub-industries that make their money off the housing market, or when a house is bought or sold or built. There are a lot of them. So that's what we're really hoping, that when interest rates come down in 2024, we have a lot more transactions and flow of transactions occurring throughout America. Now in Phoenix, I know that will be the case. And what is that magical interest rate that will get people off the fence and want to move possibly either from A rental house, or B, selling their current house and getting rid of their 2.75 or 3% mortgage rate? Well, right now, the stats prove that in Phoenix, about 6% should do the job. So we're not far away from Phoenix because we have more demand than most other markets across the US. However, across the US, according to most economists, that number is about 5.5%. So that's the target rate that everyone's really looking at, that hopefully the Fed will get to at some point in 2024. So we're going to show you a graph here that's very intriguing next, because did you know that you can actually bet, there's odds in Vegas. You can bet on what the Fed will do with the reduction of interest rates every time they meet for the rest of 2024. That's right, there are odds that you can bet on that. That's crazy. But here's the good news. Those odds and those percentages will give us an insight, a tip maybe, as to what the Fed is going to do, because the people placing the bets is the quote unquote smart money. So we'll see what happens. But look at this graph right here. You can see right here that the Fed meets again March 20th, and there's a 3% chance, according to odd makers, that they will reduce the federal funds rate. That's not very high. So chances are it's going to stay the same. But if you look at May 1st, look at it jump up to 26%. And then June 12th, holy cow, it jumps to 66% chance that the Fed will drop their federal funds rate. Now, when the Fed drops the rate, all these percentages are working off the fact that they will reduce it about 250 basis points, or a quarter of 1 percentage point, 0.25%. That's what the odds makers are saying, because typically if they're going to reduce or increase, they will go by that amount in most cases. Now, if you look back here in July, 87% in September, just ahead of the election. That's interesting, right? Because that typically makes things move a little bit. September, 97% chance the Fed's going to reduce rate. And if these odds, where it's 50% or higher, actually take place, and they are true, then you're looking at 3 different cuts at 0.25% each, for a total of 0.75% on the federal funds rate. This could potentially have the ability to bring that 30-year fixed to hover around that 6% mark, which for Phoenix would be amazing and really open the floodgates to an extent. So what does all this mean? This is the prediction that we're looking at for 2024. Let's dive in to that crystal ball. Now, here's an article written by Forbes.com that I think is really good. It's just one person or one economist's opinion, but let's see what they have to say. You can see right here that experts anticipate a slower rise in 2024 home prices compared to recent years. Moreover, the fluctuation will vary regionally and depend strongly. For the best possible outcome, we'd first need to see inventories of homes for sale turn considerably higher, says Keith Gumbinger, vice president of online mortgage company HSH. And at the very bottom, it also says we're definitely looking to a better housing market in 2024 as interest rates start to settle around 6% or even lower. The problem here, guys, is lack of supply. That is the biggest issue. And although there are cities that are building like crazy, like Phoenix is one of them, we're still far behind where we need to be to meet our demand for especially affordable housing. According to Lawrence Young, the chief economist with NAR, he says, while home sales remain sizably lower than a couple years ago, January's monthly gain is in the start of more supply and demand. Listings were modestly higher, and home buyers are taking advantage of lower mortgage rates compared to late last year. So will the housing market actually crash in 2024? Now, according to Forbes.com and all these economists that contributed to this article, the answer really is no. If you look at what Tom Hutchins says, he says, despite some areas of the country experiencing monthly price declines, the likelihood of a housing market crash, a rapid drop in unsustainably high home prices due to waning demand, remains low for 2024. Comerica forecasts the national house price will rise 2.9% in 2024, said Bill Adams, chief economist for Comerica Bank. So there are a lot of opinions on what's going to happen, but what really matters is tracking the data and informing your own opinion based upon the data and data alone. But I can tell you right now that until supply starts to exceed demand, we're looking like it's not going to be any type of crash in 2024 for the US housing market, and especially not in Phoenix. So at the end of the day, what really matters is, are you looking to buy or sell into this market? And if you're waiting, I would probably consider not waiting much longer. If you want my personal prediction, I'm predicting that we're going to see values in Phoenix and Phoenix alone to be up at least 6% by the end of this year. I really feel that when you look at the data, when rates do come down later this year, which they will to an extent, you're going to see a lot of people jump off the sidelines and jump in, understanding at that point that values probably aren't going to be coming down. So the best thing you can do is jump in, buy a house with the lowest possible monthly rate and fix it for 15 to 30 years so you can hedge yourself against any further inflation in the future and lock in that price, that payment for a long, long time, and therefore build wealth for yourself. Call us with any questions at 480-660-5974. info@cookandassociatesaz.com, or check us out right here at our Instagram page at Kelly Cook Homes. Put out daily content, guys, for your personal education and enjoyment. Thank you so much, and to never miss another video, go ahead and subscribe and check out this playlist right here. Oh, and don't forget, call me.